I hope you all have had a good time so far and visited many interesting sessions. This is another one of these interesting sessions about control rooms, command and control rooms. And I will introduce the speakers for today. We start with Lieutenant Christopher Schuh, Head of Operations Fire and Rescue Corps in Luxembourg, and he will address the redesign of the national PSAP of Luxembourg. We also have Marko Nieminen, Director of Operations Department, the Emergency Response Center Agency in Finland, and big hockey fan, I know. He will talk about designing a multi-authority PSAP operations room in a nationwide networked operational model in Finland. And last but not least, we have from Magen David Adom National Operations Center, we have Chaim Rafalowski, who is Disaster Management Coordinator at Magen David Adom, who is the emergency medical services in Israel. And he will address the need to integrate different functions into one room. So these are the speakers, and we will start with Christoph. Please, I leave the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excuse me for my voice. I think the climatization in the hotel room was a little bit too freezy, too cold. It's a great pleasure to present to you the new PSAP Command and Control Center in Luxembourg. It works fine. So, in November 2021, we moved to the new facilities in Luxembourg. But before I come to the presentation of what these new facilities are, I first of all wanted to ask a question. Who of the audience has already been to Luxembourg? Okay, unexpected, quite a lot of people. Luxembourg, special country in different ways. One of the smallest countries in the European Union, foundation member of the European Union. The size of the whole country, I precise, not of the capital, of the whole country, 2,500 square kilometers. The capital is also called Luxembourg City. Other particularity, we have 3 official languages in this small country, French, German, and Luxembourgish. And another particularity is that 50% of the inhabitants of Luxembourg don't have the Luxembourgish nationality. So you have a mixture of all of different cultures, nationalities, which makes also the particularity of emergency response and Luxembourgish PSAPs, because our dispatchers, operators have to speak at least 4 languages. And they are multicultural all the day, also the rescue operations. In one AMS operation you speak Luxembourgish, and next you speak German, French or English. And on top of these 645,000 inhabitants, there are each day 200,000 frontier workers who cross the borders of Germany, France and Belgium to come to work to Luxembourg. So approximately the Command and Control Center is responsible for around 850,000 people a day. But now coming to the core business, so the new Centrale des Secours d'Urgence, CSU 112 National PSAPs in Luxembourg for emergency medical services, fire brigade and civil protection. Some milestones of the history. We heard yesterday about the Björn Stiftung in Germany, also in the 60s in Luxembourg. Due to this initiative, there was the implementation of the first emergency central. Then you had to call the 012 to join this central. And then in 91, they moved to new facilities. The 112 was introduced already also in 91 in Luxembourg. And then another milestone in the old central, the implementation of a CAT system, eCall and Tetra and so on in 2016 to 2018. Some key numbers: 431,000 calls are handled each year. 230,000 emergency calls. That means that we have a 112 call every 2 minutes. And for rescue service and fire brigade, that means that we have 65,000 interventions a year, one intervention each 7 minutes. As I said already, the staff has to speak at least 4 languages. There are some operators, dispatchers, who even speak 5 or 6 languages. The staff is composed of operators, dispatchers, head of shifts, nurses, a quite new project also in our rescue emergency central, that we have a nurse for EMS advisory or dispatching present all the time. And then a supporting staff of 6 people. Redesigning a new national PSAP, national and international, so we are also the contact point for ERCC, for example, for the NATO. So we are doing both national and international PSAP. It's quite a challenge, and I wanted to share with you some key points of this challenge, because the goal was to have, after 30 years, a new facility which should be fine and good and modern and state-of-the-art for the next 30 years. So for us, that was quite a challenge, which started in 2018, the concrete planification of the new facilities. So you start to talk about processes, about missions. You think the missions of today, but you also try to anticipate the missions of tomorrow. Possible expansion also of the staff you need because of the progression of the inhabitants and the emergency calls. You rethink and rediscuss and again rediscuss workflows, and you try to find out what is the best. Lots of questions about ergonomics, size, climatization, ventilation. Critical infrastructure was also a big point to get the new infrastructure ready for also the future in terms of security, intrusion, access control in the framework of critical infrastructure, also the networks and informatics. Furniture. You get to know that the manufacturer of the desks, they can offer you 3,561 different colors of wood and designs, and it's not so easy to find out which design you shall choose. Acoustics also a point. Acoustics, lighting also, modelizing. We modelized a lot. The processes, the workflows, we had support on that to modelize how the workflows, how the different missions of the persons in the central are best. You argue a lot with your colleagues, with the planner, with the architect, the engineers. Sometimes you fight also with them to trying to explain them that best form follows function and not the inverse. We had to fight also with the architects to have a beautiful design, but first of all a good functionality. And of course you have to do also some compromises, because nothing is perfect, and even new facilities which are built to host a command and control center, you don't get everything as you wish, so you also have to do compromises. And before taking you with me to the new central, I wanted to share some experiences, and wanted to share, if you are planning a new infrastructure, what have we learned, and what can I say out of this experience. First of all, how we succeeded or learned by doing. We have also learned lots by doing this. We benchmarked abroad. We went to the neighbor countries, to the bigger region, and visited and had exchanges with responsible of emergency central with nearly the same characteristics, and exchanged with them on their experiences on what is good, what would they do different, and that helped us a lot to get our proper plan to plan the new facilities. Also, by exchanging with EENA, for sure, Next Generation 112 was also quite helpful to plan. But benchmark, okay, but we build and relate also on our proper experiences. That's also an important point. Each rescue service, each emergency central is different. Proper experience, proper framework, so you have also to consider this, and it matches perfectly my next point. We tried to work bottom up, to involve the staff in the project. In concrete ways, we created working groups composed by staff members, how the desk should look, how the facilities, the kitchen, the restrooms should look, so we involved them as much as possible. Also, a tip from our side, we were quite happy that from the beginning on we had the support from a specialized consulting and planning company. Because of all the planning of your new infrastructure, you don't get the daily business stopped. So the daily business, the interventions, the work as a responsible on a rescue emergency central, is going on. So you do the planning of the new facilities beside. And so help by a specialized company is really a good thing by organizing the meetings, by modelizing and so on. So that's really a thing that helped us a lot. Another tip which helped us also a lot is to finish or try to finish 3 months before the planned migration. So we managed to have, the migration was in November, we managed to have finished the whole infrastructure, technical, informatical, and also the furniture and so on. So we had a ready infrastructure in July already, which helped us to train the staff, to get to organize visits for the staff, to train them, and to do also stress tests. Being ready 3 months beforehand was really good, a good thing, and helped us to do the migration with any problem. Do not change everything at the time. New facilities, in our opinion, are enough for especially for the staff. So don't change everything at the time, and don't forget running daily business. Convince the architect and the engineer that form follows function. I don't know how many times we repeated this and fight it from the beginning on. That's also an important point. We planned double capacity. As I said, we built an emergency central for the next 30 years, so we planned a double capacity to have enough space to expand. And as I said already, the stress test 3 months before, and much more what we learned by doing by this experience. So as I said, the implementation is at the 4th floor in the new facilities, the new rescue and emergency central of Luxembourg. Means in this building you have the administration, you have the fire brigade of Luxembourg City, the National Firefighting and Emergency Medical School, and a whole floor dedicated to the Command and Control Center. Some impressions of this, you see it's a quite large room with high ceilings. We had the problem that we have only windows at one side, so we try by intelligent lighting to have a bright, central, open space and not too much filled, so a light design, I would like to say, also by choosing the colors of the desks and the furniture. We worked a lot on details, also by benchmarking things that we saw in other emergency centrals. Mostly details, we try to implement them. For example, in the middle you can see that all the desks are variable in the height, so ergonomics was a big point. All the desks are standardized, they look the same, they are standardized, they are same. We have the clean desk policy so that you have as few as necessary items on the desk. As you see, that goes from cup holders to also standardized equipment, so that in stress situations you don't have to search for things. You know where the backup telephone is, you know where the backup radio is. It's on all the desks in the same place, and that's very appreciated also by the staff. The last picture you see is a shelf where every staff member has his proper items. So when he comes at the shift beginning, he takes his items out and goes to his workplace and starts to work. The disposal, also a topic where we can discuss and long time, and we changed it, I don't know, 20 times to get this result, saying that the shift leader is on a small stage and looking in front of the dispatchers, which are oriented like this. Dispatcher operator workplace in little more detail, how it looks like, and an explanation about what you have. So we have a silent emergency central, also important. So there's no phone ringing, no radio or phone communication allowed. Everything is via headset. You have status lamps to ensure that the shift leaders and the colleagues see when someone is in a conversation. We have for sure a tree-curved monitors for the CAD system. We have a completely integrated GIS systems, and we tried to get a good overview on these three curved screens for all the essential CAD software and also other programs. Beside of the emergency central, you have the operational center. That means we have beside of it the operational coordination center room, a room where we manage bigger interventions. So we take the bigger or more complicated interventions out of the 112 central and make them managed by dedicated staff. And you can see some picture of an activation of this. An overflow room with 24 telephones to activate when we have lots of emergency calls in topics of severe weather phenomena and so on. And we have also a dedicated room to get a hotline running, for example, in mass casualties, or in the beginning, for example, of the COVID pandemic, we activated our hotline to decharge the 112. So, and in the end of my presentation, I brought a video with me which shows the inauguration of the Rescue Central, and I think it shows very good, gives you a good impression of the rooms and of the atmosphere of the new 112 of Luxembourg.
Haut 16. November gouf den neien CSU 112 mam Centre de Gestion des Opérations Knies ageweit. Ein historisch Moment fir eis, ein Aboutissement vun engem Projekt, den as lo jorelang beschäftigt huet, sowohl an der Planifikation von der neuen Zentral, der Technik, der Infrastruktur, auch ganz viel Personal vom 112 selber man da gebunden hatten, an der Ausarbeitung, notamment, wie gesagt, Pooldaus, wie sollen es halt Séjour sein, wie sollen Doflief sein. Und dafür ist ein Aboutissement von einem Projekt, und auch ging es so ein neues Buch beim Aufhängen an der Geschichte von der Notrufzentral zu Lützenburg. Wir haben mehr wie Provisorium, wir haben ein komplett fertig zentral mit allem, was dazu gehört. Und dann möchte ich immens froh und stolz, heute konnten die Abweihung machen zu können. Auf dieser Platz ein großes Merci lassen und all die implizierten Kollegen und Kolleginnen vom CGD. Das Resultat kann sich weisen, und das ist all unser Merit. Er lädt den Grundstein für neue moderne 112 für die nächsten Jahre.
So thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, there's 1 minute 30 left for maybe 1-2 questions. Otherwise, you have my contact data there, so please don't hesitate to contact me in case of. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. And we have time for 1 or maybe 2 questions. Anyone in the audience? Give a big wave.
Hello, my name is Maarja-Liisa from Estonia, and I would like to ask about these overflow rooms. Do you have information on how fast you get workers in there? Is it a matter of a day or 1 hour, or how do you do it?
Yeah, thank you for this interesting question. First of all, the staff who is called to activate this overflow room, they are all firefighters. Was important to us not to take administrative personnel, but firefighter which are trained and which can also answer to question of the caller. The organization is like follows. So during office hours, as you saw, there's lots of personnel in the building. So during office hours, we have an alerting group of people who are in the building. So they get up to the 4th floor and they activate the room. So during daytime, yeah, it's quite quick. I would say 10 to 15 minutes. So we can also consider activating the overflow room in terrorist attacks or mass casualties where you have lots of 112 calls. And during nighttime, weekends or holidays, we have a group of trained firefighters from the fire brigades around. That means the 20 fire brigades which are around Luxembourg City have to give us 24 hours 1 firefighters for our overflow room, and they are trained. Means that they have a basic training which lasts 4 hours, and they have 2 times a year refresh training of 2 hours. So that's volunteer firefighters which come, and it's quite simple. We have they take the 112 calls, and there's a triage saying, okay, it's an emergency. So they rely on the colleagues in the central, and the interventions are directly dispatched. Or if it's linked to, for example, severe weather or floodings, they are taking the data, and the data is put in the CAD systems, and then the alert is done.
Thank you very much, Christopher. A big hand to Christopher.
Thank you.
And now it's time to introduce Marko Nieminen to talk about how to do a Finnish PSAP in the best way. Go ahead, Marko.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is nice to be here again after a while due to the COVID-19. I'm Marko Nieminen, and I come from the Emergency Response Center agency in Finland. We are a nationwide agency and have 6 centers throughout Finland and 1 command and control center within one of the centers in the south. We handle about 3 million emergency calls annually and dispatch 1.5 million tasks every year. So we answer 112 call in every 12 seconds. I will speak a little about the background of our facilities, how we started with them, and what are the visions that we have. Our facilities are about 20 years old, so they are not as fancy as they have now in Luxembourg, very impressive, but we have plans to do something new for them. So the key questions are how to organize an emergency response center operations in multi-authority public safety answering point. What are things to take into account in the networked operational model of 6 centers and the command and control center, and what kind of leadership, cooperation, and occupational safety issues need to be considered when planning the layout. We started the emergency response center renewal in the late 90s or early 2000, and the renewal started officially 2001, and the design of control room was based on many assumptions rather than knowledge. There was not much facts about the requirements of multi-authority public safety answering point processes, because the work had been done in various and many different ways in control rooms of police and fire and rescue. A lot of emphasis was put on the ergonomics and sound control and workflow interaction and management requirements in bigger centers were not fully recognized, because the centers that police and fire rescue had earlier were really small. Most of our centers were built underground. That was a policy in Finland. At first we were supposed to build all the 15 centers underground, but then due to some budget issues, only few of them were built in the caves. There was a time, maybe 10 years ago, when this was questioned, that should we nowadays be underground, but at the moment it seems like a good decision when considering what kind of things are happening in Ukraine. So this is also a readiness issue. But underground facilities require special attention to decrease the stress of being inside a cave. It doesn't fit for everyone. The centers were built with different security zones. And for example, entry to server rooms is for restricted persons only. There are other kind of plans and equipment for security and resilience issues, in addition to such as UPS and power engine for reserve power, readiness to pump away wastewater, and NBC protection material, and many others. We have like a reserve room for these kind of things, but they are, for example, our shelters are used for gyms and things like that, that you can use it for another reason in a normal daily base use. Here is an example of one of the control room in one emergency response center that nowadays is no longer our facility. This is from the early days of our agency in 2004. All the centers looked quite similar and were built up basically the same way. Shift supervisor was in the back row, and all the call takers and dispatchers in charge of incident monitoring and supportive duties were facing the front wall. That was at first. And at first we also were showing city cameras and views from the center's own security cameras to everyone. But as the areas grew very large and there were lots of cities for one center to manage, we decided that it's not possible to follow what happens in the cities, so it's not useful to show them all the time to everyone. And the command and control rooms of different local authorities, police and fire rescue, they are following the cameras. It's not so critical for us. One goal was to minimize the noise level in the center, because that is a known stress factor. We didn't want to build any walls between the workstations or put our workers inside boxes. It was done via using noise-absorbing material like acoustic clouds in the roof, wall plates with holes, oblique wall in the back of the room, and ventilation from under the floor. We also set rules about how to behave in the control room. There should not be any shouting. the ringing voices are low and radio traffic is via headsets only. And we allow no visitor groups inside the control rooms normally. It's only for special groups. And for training and visitors, there is a separate room behind the actual control room. That is also suitable for long-lasting incidents when you need to take authorities around the same table for planning. Emergency Response Center agency has always thought that the ergonomics is a really important issue in this kind of work. We have been actively involved in designing the table we use, and also the seat model was also tested by our personnel. And we have different kind of seats for available all the time, so people don't need to use the same kind of seats, because we are different. We encourage our personnel to change their working position during the shift. Standing helps in avoiding back problems, and is good for your health. Next to the command and control room, there's this kind of a room for training, and there's also a special room for breaks next to the control room, so that the people don't have to go far, and they are easy to get back into the work in case there is a big incident. There's also a gym in the same building that can be used during your breaks, or when there's like a silent time. That is quite rare at the moment, but there's a possibility for that. And this is also a matter of ICT security. So this is where when photographing in the control room is forbidden, so that we can show all the things that we need in that room. So there is the CAD system's training version available. Wellness issues is also taken into account when planning the public safety answering points. Each center has its own sauna, it's always ready, a gym, and different kind of instruments for relaxation. This is also kind of thing that we are making our share in maintaining the #1 position in the happiest country in the world, which Finland has been for many years in a row. In the second phase of our renewal from 2008, we decreased the number of PSAP from 15 to 6, but the size of the facilities remained the same. So this was a challenge. We needed to equip the centers with more workstations and fit all the people in. However, we also had more knowledge about the work processes and made some tuning on our operational working model. Different options how to change the setting of workstations and layout of the operations room were taught. We compared different models that we knew that the other countries have and other centers have. And we also thought about what kind of space these would require, because there were certain limitations from that fact. The Technical Research Center of Finland, VTT, gave us some recommendations about different things like temperature and using the wall screens. We decided not to show too much information in the wall screen, and in the future we want to have our system, show all the necessary information in the CAD system or in your workstation, so that you don't have to look around the walls to find some information you need in your work. Too much information in the wall can become also a harassment. So that is something to consider. This is an example of our workstation design from one of our big centers. Shift supervisor and dispatcher are in the front, facing the call takers. Information on the wall is minimal, so we saw there 112 queue situation and supervisors' briefings, like special information, special instructions for certain situations. There is also own talk group in data radio for internal communication, and we use Skype chat in cooperation between call taker and dispatcher. And in the Finnish model, the call takers are also dispatching the high priority cases, and so it's not the traditional call taker dispatcher role. This is how it looks like at the moment. The workstations are quite close to each other, but there is still enough room for passageways. And this is another picture how a control room layout looks like in practice. So as you can see, the shift supervisor has a bigger table. He also has some administrational work, so there are more workstations, but the call takers have quite similar, very simple workstation where there is everything should be integrated in the CAD system. Okay, we have had a nationwide network operational model where 6 PSAPs form one entity, one virtual PSAP. Everything is within one system and every center follows the same guidelines. It is possible for a call taker nowadays in one center to work shift in another place. If there is enough workstation available for that period. At this model, the call taker is then a remote resource for his home PSAP. This opportunity is, however, not used much due to the pandemic situation, but it will increase in the future. So this requires enough workstation capacity in our centers. The network system makes it also possible to support center having resource issues from other centers. And this requires new tools for leadership and cooperation. And communication and situational awareness are critical. And we can also close some centers. We actually did it one month ago and tested how it works. It worked very well. So we have continuous readiness for sudden incidents that require leaving one facility or many facilities. So 6 centers are capable of taking any calls and dispatching. We can dispatch from anywhere to everywhere. We are at the moment thinking about the renewal of our facilities that are old. What we are trying to find is that what kind of new things we should consider and what is the work like in 2030, 40 or 50. So this is a strategic choice. Noise reduction, individual lighting, modern audio, visual system and ergonomics are still hot topics. But new things like accessibility are on the planning desk as well. We also need to learn from the present pandemic. We have already organized hand washing possibility into every entrance to the facilities, but there are still other issues. Strong ventilation helps against airborne diseases. That is a known fact. And subdividing into different compartments could be one solution to decrease the risk of exposure when there is the next pandemic. There will be a next pandemic, I think. Okay, thank you for your attention, and that was what we are doing in Finland.
Thank you very much, Marko. Thank you. Okay, we open for 1 or 2 questions again. We have one in the middle, I see.
Good morning. My name is Alex from Abu Dhabi Police. And I was wondering, two questions. What is the duration of your shifts? And the second is, in case you need to lock down your underground facilities, how long is it planned that you can stay locked down? Thank you.
Our shifts are different. They are normally, the normal rotation is 10 or 12 hours. But there are also people that may do only 8-hour shifts, so, but 12 is the normal. And during the lockout, we prepare for quite a long period, but this is something that I'm sorry, I can't give you more details.
Okay, thank you. We had another question. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Hello, Marko, Tero Pesonen, TCCA. Now as Finland is moving to Virve 2, the broadband network on communicating with the, how do you see it impacting your work?
That is an interesting question because at the moment our cooperation and communication with other authorities and the units in the field is based on voice. But the next generation Tetra radio communication can be also via video conference calls and like that. So I think the biggest change will be in the cooperation between the inside the chain of help. So we need to find out new ways to do things.
Thank you, Marko. A big hand for Marko. And meanwhile, I will leave the floor to Mr. Chaim Rafalowski, who will talk about the situation in Israel.
Good morning. Chaim Rafalowski, the Disaster Management Coordinator of Magen David Adom in Israel. Magen David Adom, we are 4 organizations in one, but before I start, I should say that in Israel we like a lot the word national, and indeed we are one national service for the whole country. Just please bear in mind with me that we are 9.5 million inhabitants, so we provide services to something which is basically like the London ambulance service, so I should be humble in the use of the word national. I know I won't, so that's a word of caution before I start. We are the National Blood Service. We are the Red Cross Society that is member of the international movement, and we are the National Emergency Medical Service, and as such also part of our civil protection mechanism in Israel. Civil protection is still civil defense and belongs to the military. Magen David Adom operates a unique command and control system that was designed and developed in-house in Magen David Adom and has several layers of information that comes together at the end of the day to what we call the incident management. It starts with a dedicated application with the e-call, of course with an emergency line, and very similar to the situation in Finland, we have 10 centers which are the recipient and dispatch centers, but they are all connected into one system, so a call taker in Magen David Adom can receive a call anywhere in the country, from anywhere in the country, and at the end of the day it will be dispatched by the regional dispatcher through the CAT system. Then we have our dashboard cameras on the ambulances and motorcycles that we use. The public can send us real-time footage, both video and stills through their command and control system. And so we have to integrate all that information into one common operational picture, which is done at the National Operations Center, and this is what I'm going to talk about, the challenge of integrating all those sources of information. And I didn't mention, for example, the fact that all our monitors in the ambulances are connected to our command control system, so our medical control sees real-time medical data of the patient. We are a paramedic-based organization, we don't have physicians, and in the case there is a need for a medical advice, a physician online would be doing that, and this is why, for us, this connectivity is so important. This is how our national operations cell inside the operation center looks like, and they have several functions. Part of it is just another regional dispatch center. As I said, we have 10 of them, and one of them is situated inside the national operations facility, but it is just a normal dispatch center. We have a very strong program of first response volunteers, which are volunteers in the community, which are expected to respond to an emergency in their neighborhood within 3 to 4 minutes. And they are dispatched centrally for the whole country throughout a dedicated dispatch center inside our National Operations Center. Medical control is there. They are the main backup in case of a failure in one of our regional dispatch centers. They will take over the operation. And of course, we have the function of the oversight to look into the whole operation of Magen David Adom. And in a normal year, we are dispatching more than 2 million ambulance calls. COVID has almost doubled those numbers, but the idea is that we want to be on top of any irregularity before it becomes an issue. So the oversight for us is a major task, which is 24/7, of course, 365 days a year. We want to make sure that never mind what is the size of the emergency operation that is occurring in Israel, and besides the normal things you talk about, Israel is also prone to a major earthquake, so we are preparing for our business continuity plan in the event of a major earthquake affecting our country. And the other thing is the rapid flow of information. Government wants information, the minister wants information very fast in an emergency situation. It is expected from our Director General to provide that information within seconds, not even minutes. Social media is always ahead of us, and it is our duty at the National Operations Center to provide our management with real-time, accurate information, and the two key words here are real-time and accurate. So, what is our working environment? We have many operations going on simultaneously. Small, larger, never mind. Most of the activity is routine. Fortunately, we don't have a mass casualty incident every second day, and we don't have a terrorist attack every day. The oversight of our activity, as I said, is one of our main functions or functionalities, but it requires the integration of many sources of information coming from the public, from our teams via radio, from our teams on the field via phone, through the command control system, through images, sometimes through just the media outlets, and it is the duty of the operations officer on duty to integrate all that information. And here it is about the human thing. We need to remember that at the end of the day, we have humans on the other side who are responding to a critical situation, and sometimes you need to filter what they are telling you with a pinch of salt. Any dispatcher can be the trigger for a major operation. It is not just the regional dispatcher, it can be the dispatcher of the volunteers, it can be medical control who tells you, look, we have 2-3 patients that have irregular signs and symptoms, something is not okay there. It doesn't look okay. So it's not, for many years we thought, okay, it's the regional dispatcher who is sending the ambulances, the only one who would raise the flag or trigger the alarm. This is not the case. It could be anyone. And the most important thing is that if you're working in the environment of an operation center, you go 0 to 100 in seconds. I would say sometimes in milliseconds. You say, oh, this shift is nice, and that's a jinx. You should never say that in an operation center, because 2 seconds later, the hell breaks loose. And for the good and for the bad, we have managers. Managers can be a determinant in an operation center. For the good, but sometimes, and I will talk about it later, managers are a reason for chaos in a well-functioning operation center, sometimes just because you need to show that you are the boss. So, what are the implications? All our operation centers are in a bomb shelter by default. And we used to have the procedure of having a backup facility, which is in a bomb shelter, and to move our operations to a bomb shelter. We realized that reality doesn't give us the time sometimes to move from your normal operation center to a backup shelter. Sometimes in our region, the rocket attacks are a total surprise, and then what do you do? So in order to avoid the dilemma, are we continuing our operation in an unprotected facility, putting our personnel at harm's way, or are we shutting down the operation for the half an hour it takes us to move to the backup facility? We decided this is not a question. We are just working in a bomb shelter 24/7 with the implications of working in a cave, no windows, that's the reality, ventilation, and at the end of the day, the size that you can have when you're working in a bomb shelter sometimes is more limited that you can have in a normal building. We can only dream of having our operation centers in the 4th floor of a big office facility. That's not going to happen. So size is restricted, and still people are working there 24/7 under stress situations, so we need to give them a comfortable working environment, which is a challenge. Noise. We realize that technology is important, but the most important thing is about how people behave in an operation center, and this is an education process. One of the issues that we realized causes most of the noise in the operation center environment is the social gathering. The 2-3 people that it's a slow shift, they don't have a lot of work, they're just sitting together, and as good friends, they're laughing, which is a very good thing, I have to say, but it creates a lot of noise. So, as we say, take your coffee, but you cannot take your coffee inside the operation center. That's the rule. You cannot have a chat with your friends when you are sitting in your station. It creates a lot of noise. The other thing is that the most effective way of communicating an emergency situation is when one dispatcher stands up and speaks out loud. That very small physical gesture that you see someone standing up and speaking louder gives everyone in the room the understanding that there is something unusual going on and that dispatcher wants you to pay attention. So for us, this is a procedure that works very well. By the way, the size of the screens allows to block a lot of noise. When you are sitting, the moment you are standing, that's another story, and it works well. It's a kind of cue for everyone. And about the social gatherings, I already spoke. The National Operations Cell, as we call it, is the main hub that should absorb all the information, integrate the information, make sense out of it, and send it away. Managers should stay out of the cubicles. This is one of the most important lessons learned. That's a horrible feeling for the people who are working, that they know that someone is standing at their back and looking over their shoulder. It makes you feel very, very uncomfortable. And then when you are in that position, you also tend to do micromanagement. So what we are trying to do, it's not easy, I have to say, as someone on the manager side, is not to stand at the back of the dispatcher, but in front of the dispatcher and use the famous sentence, "Tell me what is going on." And then allows the dispatcher to think through the process and tell you things, and it allows you to listen first, and then to say, okay, and then to move. And this is an important thing, and that's the advantage of having a small operations room. We used to tell our dispatchers, call that guy and ask. But the poor dispatcher is extremely busy already doing things. So the right thing to do is to go yourself 10 steps away to the other guy and ask the question. And that allows you really to have your own idea and understanding of the situation. Large screens are very important for the overall picture. If I want to know how many ambulances do I have on a site of an emergency operation, of a mass casualty incident, I look on the screen. You can see it, and we have already agreed what is the level of zoom in, zoom out that we need for that information to be available. What are the hospitals that are receiving victims? It's on the screens. I don't need to ask anyone. I can just read the information, and the idea is that when you go into the room, by a glimpse on the bigger screens, you will have all the needed information. This is the general layout of our National Operations Center. On one side, you can see the first responders, dispatchers. The medical control on the other side is the regional dispatch, and the National Operations Cell is just in between, and that's a circle limited in the size, and as I said, it has a purpose to avoid too many of us standing there. You see the empty positions. They are our backup, just in case we would need more staff to run the operation, or we would have a very large operation and we would need someone to go on the monitoring, the oversight operation, or as a backup for a regional operations center. And what you see on the lower picture is the managers, and my colleague on the back is what we want to try to avoid during an operation. Someone just standing with a serious face looking on others doing the work. That's not how you want the operation. If you have something important to say, like the manager standing in the middle and giving an advice to a dispatcher, very good. Otherwise, find yourself a corner far away. And I like very much the idea that if you can have them in another room and show it through a TV camera, that would be great. If there are any questions, I will be more than happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaim. And you have a very special situation, I must say, with incoming rockets now and then, so I see that you have some challenges. Any questions? We have time for one question to Chaim. Question in the middle? The lady 2 stairs up, I think. Yeah, all right.
This is Alex again. I have a question about how you manage your volunteers and if you know which ones are actually activated or available at a site.
The first response volunteers is a purely statistical system. We have in Magen David Adom around 5,000 volunteers that are registered as first response volunteers. And the moment you are registered as the first response volunteers, you receive from Magen David Adom. First of all, you have to be trained, of course, as an emergency medical technician. You receive a first aid kit, which goes with you in the trunk of your private car. And the most important thing is that you agree to be traced through an application as long as you indicate in the application that you are available to respond. The system now is very simple. It's a matching system, which means the command and control system creates a geographical entity, what we call the flag, for the call, and looks for all the volunteers that are within 5 to 10 minutes drive calculated from the scene and dispatches them a message. We hope that one of the volunteers that is within that radius will be available and will respond, and they respond through the app. They say, I'm on my way. They are not on duty in a sense that they must respond. We believe that if we have enough volunteers all the day, statistically, someone will be available. On the result side, we see much higher rates of survival in out-of-the-hospital cardiac arrest in neighborhoods where we have more volunteers. Normally, these rescue stories motivate people to volunteer. If you add to that the fact that all the defibrillators in Israel, the AEDs that are in a public location, either of Magen David Adom or other organizations, are mapped, and our call takers are instructed to send someone to bring a defibrillator from the street to the scene, we are trying to encourage communities to be involved in the rescue process. We believe that that's the only way that at the end of the day we will save lives.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we will have to close this session now. A big round of applause for Christopher, Marko, and Chaim. And I hope you will be available for questions afterwards if there are any. Okay, we will now in this track room have the subject of ensuring continuity of emergency communications. If you want to go and listen to strengthening the engagement of civil society in transforming, that session will be held in parallel track room 2. And if you want to listen to industry session on public warning solutions, part 1 is in the parallel track room 3. Thank you very much. Thank you.